Hello, my name is Gyewon Jang, and I'm a doctoral student in the Language and Literacy program in the Department of Middle and Secondary Education at Georgia State University. I'm currently in the United States, and so because of the time difference, I decided to have an asynchronous presentation. So I would thank all of you for coming to my presentation before I begin. Today, I'm going to present my study on exploring language, culture, and interculturality in Korean EFL education through mediated discourse analysis. As tradition, South Korea has been highly considered a homogeneous country in terms of language and culture, upholding the dominant belief of pure-bloodedness, which has been defined as the social understanding of one nation, one language, and one race. This ideology has been, however, challenged since the mid-1990s by a rapidly growing number of people from overseas countries, especially migrant workers and international marriages between foreign brides from developing Asian countries such as Vietnam, the Philippines, Thailand, or Cambodia, and Korean males in rural areas suffering from an insufficient female population as a result of urbanization. So as a consequence of the increasing immigrant and multicultural families, the influx of children from diverse cultural, linguistic, and racial and ethnic backgrounds to school has evoked intense calls for multicultural education in Korea in order to embrace them. So in 2016, the Korean Ministry of Education enacted the Policy of Educational Support Plan for children from migrant families. However, the policy has deficit perspectives of multicultural families and children, differentiating them from ethnic Koreans. Also, it seems to have conflicting approaches to multicultural education regarding its audiences. So, for example, for students from multicultural families, it focuses on their assimilation through Korean as a second language education programs, while ethnic Korean students learn multicultural education for their multicultural understandings to become those with the linguistic and cultural competence in the global society. So when you look at the Korean National EFL curriculum, its goal set by the Ministry of Education is to enhance every student across all grades understanding of linguistic and cultural diversity and their abilities to become a member of a global community by developing communicative competence. But it seems to lack a solid understanding of communicative competence and plans for its development in a broader perspective. Also, numerous previous studies have found problematic and concerning Western bias and native speakerism embedded in the Korean EFL textbooks and other learning materials. So I took the notion of critical intercultural education as an additional framework. To understand what critical intercultural education is, we gotta understand what is interculturality. Interculturality is not just about a culture or other cultures. Instead, it is more about how each individual identifies and becomes aware of self in relation to other regarding social context and power relations that are fluid, unsettled, and changeable within and across various kinds of borders. In that sense, critical intercultural education is a theory and praxis that helps to de-emphasize the practice of stereotypes and homogenizing cultures in education. Thus, critical intercultural education is a commitment to combat inequality, racism, as well as sexism, and all forms of prejudice, oppression, and discrimination through the development of understanding, attitudes, and social action skills through language and dialogues. However, previous studies of EFL learning materials have such a narrow focus on certain topics like culture, language, gender, race, ethnicity, or dominant discourse. Limited attention has been made to examine elementary level learning materials due to less written text for more modalities. Also, there has been few efforts to examine representations of cultural and linguistic values and beliefs in EFL materials within the frameworks of critical intercultural education. So in this study, I aimed to examine the understanding of cultural and linguistic values and beliefs embedded in a Korean EFL learning material. I have two research questions here. Number one, to what extent is Korean EFL learning material critically intercultural? And number two, what values and beliefs are represented in Korean EFL learning material? For data, I had a short animated video clip devised for Korean EFL students in grade 6 as a supplemental learning material for paper-based textbooks. It is for listening practices through a cyber learning website, which is free for use and managed and operated by the Ministry of Education, and it's a 17 provincial offices of education in Korea. The video is about informing about Korean cultural heritage, and it was intentionally chosen for two reasons. First, it comes under the second half of the grade 6 Korean National English curriculum that is assumed to contain an advanced level of content than lower grades, and at the same time to function as a springboard for the middle school English curriculum. This is mirrored in the second reason. The episode of the lesson follows a goal of the middle school English curriculum, while the elementary curriculum aims to develop communicative competence and understanding of foreign cultures through learning activities relevant to students' real life. Um, but the middle school curriculum proposes that students become able to introduce Korean cultures in English as one of the goals. So thus, this video data was expected to be useful to understand the language and cultural differences presented in the Korean primary EFL curriculum, and foresee how the middle school curriculum would address its perspectives of diverse cultures and languages. In order to analyze the data, the mediated discourse analysis is employed. Mediated discourse analysis is an action-oriented approach to an in-depth understanding of a particular discourse in social culture context, exploring human actions mediated by different tools. This approach assumes that all communication is on an action that is acted by individuals using language and or other tools that have shared historical meanings constructed in a certain social cultural environment. There are 5 core concepts that helped this study to examine what social meanings, beliefs, and values are revealed in the Korean EFL learning material. Those are mediated action, mediational tools, practice, site of engagement, and agency. Among them, mediated action is utilized as a unit of analysis. It is defined in this study as any verbal and non-verbal action carried out by 4 animated social actors in the video to transmit certain meanings at the stage of starting, continuing, and ending communication. And this is the screenshot. And it shows how I analyze the data according to the different levels of mediated actions, actors, mediated tools, and even locations. So from now on, I'm going to talk about the findings of the study. I got the 3 major findings, and here I'm going to introduce each one at a time. However, in general, the data revealed a series of mediated actions of the 4 characters, Yunso, Yunho, Jack, and Bao. And the verbal and non-verbal interactions between these characters are designed to impose anticipated actions on Korean EFL learners and reproduces some certain social ideologies. First, the analysis of different levels of each actor's actions indicated a particular ways of behavior and roles that are applied to the character. So Yunso is the only female Korean character with eyelashes in a dress. She appears the most frequently, opening and or leading a conversation in most scenes. Her primary role is informing new information and giving correct answers to questions raised by other male characters in the second photo here. The roles and actions represent her as very smart, mature, almost like a teacher, and in such scenes in which she is focused and enlarged in the middle of the frame, like you can see in the first photo here. Her posture also supports the role, which is demonstrated with one hand on her hip and unfolded index finger that indicate her offers of information or direct focus on specific object. Another Korean, Yunho, is male with a hoodie, jeans, and a backward hat, making him look casual and active. Whether or not for his least appearance, interactions with others, and impact on the whole conversation, his actions are hard to understand what role he plays. So, for example, in the first phase of the conversation, he suggests that others visit a museum to learn about King Sejong and Hangul, the Korean alphabet, which signals his prior knowledge of the fact he made. Then he is shown in the last scene with the two other male characters saying "wow" with the flashing light bulbs on his forehead. Those verbal, oral, and visual modalities imply his feeling of surprise by knowing what King Sejong did, which is the invasion of Hangul and the writing of Hunminjeongeum. His conflicting actions in the different phases of conversation make audiences confused with his role and questioning if they are for alignment of positive reaction with the foreign characters. Although the degree of intensity of the actions and roles given to Yoon-seo and Yoon-ho is varied, it reveals their readiness to provide their foreign counterparts with the historical, cultural, and linguistic information historically preserved in social institutions. The inquiries asked by the foreign actors are described as something that the Korean students should take with a willingness to give answers or even a sense of pride to teach about the national heritage. In particular, the mediated actions of Yoon-seo in the screenshot operate as an exemplary model that young Korean English learners are believed to do so in situations where they communicate with the non-Koreans in English, which means informing and promoting national cultural heritage with pride. The other two characters, Jack and Bao, are male, non-Korean, and foreigners. By the color tones portraying them, Jack is assumed as white and Bao as black with curly hair. Their behaviors and roles are pretty limited to foreigners who are ignorant about the Korean language and cultural heritage and social figures, like King Sejong. The actions that manifest their lack of knowledge contain constant questions and confusing facial expressions, gestures, postures accompanied by animated drawings and sound effects. The question marks next to their face and the I don't know posture also signify that they need further information, which the knowing or character like Yoon-seo is anticipated to provide. Despite their lack of knowledge and language ability, Jack and Bao represent their interest and willingness to learn about Korean cultural and linguistic heritage from their friends. Whenever new information is given, they seem amused, represented by their smiling eyes and mouth, arms stretched out in the air, and exciting voice tones on such words like wow and great. The chains of the mediated actions of Jack and Bao illustrate that non-Koreans do not possess Korean linguistic and cultural knowledge and are not active in learning it even though they stay in the country. However, they are open-minded to receive specific information if knowledgeable Koreans provide it, and often feel amused and excited by newly learned facts. Accordingly, they become a passive object that should be informed of the proud national heritage by Koreans. In addition to the characters' actions mediated by various semiotic systems, the photos inserted in the several scenes are also found to make certain social meanings. So as you can see in the photo on the slide, they present the inside of the museum and historical objects like Hunminjeongeum. When the pictures are displayed, The actors are minimized or out of the angle with a small part of their body left, like Jack's hand in the picture over here, to direct the audience's focus to the building and book. On their arrival at the museum, Bao and Jack shouted and saying, "Wow, it looks great!" with excitement expressed by open arms and big smiles. Even Yuso and Yunho seem impressed by the interior and displays in the museum that are mediated with several different modes, including char sounds, sparkling shapes on the photo, and eye gazes looking around. Bao and Jack made up and down hand motions and big smiles, including their pleasure in visiting the museum. The conversations, actions, and other resources that occurred in and out of the museum function to promote the place as an educational site, not only for non-Korean ethnic people, but also Koreans to learn about the history and the value of Hangul and the language. That is, the photos of the museums, which are real, not illustrations, work to add a sense of authenticity to the learning material, as well as to encourage students to visit or introduce the place to foreign people. So, the findings shows that, along with the spoken and written languages, the images, photos, sounds, voices, animations, and actions and movements of the animated human characters have contributed to constructing social and ideological meanings. In terms of language, the data indicate different attitudes toward the Korean and English languages. It mirrors the idea of a Ministry of Education that English is a global language that people from different linguistic backgrounds in the world utilize to communicate. Also, English is illustrated as a linguistic tool for Koreans and non-Korean students to teach and learn the Korean history and cultural heritage, which is another goal stated in the national curriculum of English. On the other hand, Korean is shown in a different way. Despite the linguistic environment of Korea, where English is rarely used for its foreign language status, the Korean language appears very shortly in the photo as a historical heritage and is used as a topic of conversation. It is further described as the language of Koreans, Yunso and Yunho, not that of other ethnic people like Jack and Bao. In the study of Lee and Park, insists that Korean language and its written system Hangul essentialize the national identity of Koreans, which in turn affirms the people's long-held strong belief and pride in the idea of a linguistically and ethnically homogeneous country. So it seems evident that the EFL learning material that is intended to develop multicultural understanding rather functions to reproduce and reconstruct the national ideology of collectivism, one nation, and one language. The linguistic ideology also seems to affect the stereotypical perspectives toward the non-ethnic Koreans and the absolute proudness of Korean culture and history. As the essence of Korean national identity, the presentation of King Sejong, Hangul, and Hunmin Jeongeum in the video legitimizes the Korean language, culture, history, and people, as well as differentiates non-ethnic Korean people from Koreans, which represent the ideology of linguicism. Subsequently, the video exhibited that Jack and Bao do not have any linguistic knowledge of Korean, even though they are assumed to have stayed in the country long enough to make two Korean friends. The foreign actors never show their initiative to learn the Korean language and culture, being passive and waiting to be informed. This deficit view of non-ethnic Korean people justifies the belief that multicultural education is only for multicultural families and their studies again. So this video sends out the message to its Korean ethnic students that they should be able to teach non-ethnic Korean people about the proud language and culture and history with the global language English. Also, from the perspective of critical intercultural education, the current Korean EFL curriculum and further multicultural education practice still remain to teach and change the other, not us, not Koreans themselves, by emphasizing culture as a national static entity. I'm going to conclude with some suggestions. This study urges changes in conceptualization and practice of the current multicultural education in Korean EFL education. Teachers, policymakers, and teaching and learning material developers should work together to look for new ways to teach and learn multiple forms of diversity and social justice through a curriculum which can open a space for discussing conflicts, challenges, and social changes. This study also suggests critical intercultural education instead of multicultural education as a way to delve into the hidden messages and meanings under the surface of the social discourse and appearances in the curriculum. Critical intercultural education can bridge a gap between the knowledge and practice of interculturality and raise students' attention and understanding of social, cultural, and geographical issues in the world. Here are my selected references. And thank you so much for watching the presentation. And if you have any questions or opinions, please contact me at the email written on the slide. Thank you.